So what's the sequence of event now?
Like the schedule that we began with.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, welcome everybody. Great to see so many people interested in the GAC Open Forum session. There are some seats in front, and there will be some slides that are perhaps not always as large font as one would wish. So please move forward if you have a hard of seeing, which I would have. My name is Anders Hector. I'm a Swedish representative to the GAC. I work at the Ministry of Enterprise, Energy and Communications. And these are a few of my GAC colleagues. I'm going to introduce them, and they're going to help us during this 1.5 hours. I thought we have a bit of a program that we introduced in the IGF program. So we're going to start with GAC 101, if you wish, basics about what the GAC is, basic data, which Thomas Schneider in the beautiful green shirt will give a presentation on. After that, I'm going to try and make an interactive interview with 3 GAC colleagues about our role as GAC representatives, how we prepare for GAC sessions, what other things we have in our portfolio in our respective governments, and how we use the surrounding other stakeholders to prepare for GAC meetings. And this will be Olga Cavalli from Argentina, Wanawit, I missed the last name there. Sorry about that, Wanawit. Wanawit Akaputra from Thailand, and Yandir Santos from Brazil. We also have, as a general resource, the chair of GAC, Heather Dryden, whom is from Canada. We're also going to get a little bit deeper view of how we work between sessions and what sort of working groups we have from Manal, which is from Egypt. After that, we will be speaking a little bit more about how we design the GAC communique, which some of you may have seen. And Imad Hobola is going to help us with this. And Alice Munya. Imad is from Lebanon, and Alice is from African Union Commission. Okay, so. And we have a Q&A session at the end, but please, if you have any questions or comments, interrupt, raise your hand, I'll give you the mic, and you can have the floor. We also have remote participants. Please tweet hashtag GAC and IGF 2014 and send your questions there as well. So can I just ask, how many in this room have ever been to an ICANN meeting? Hands up, please. Quite a few. I see people that I know have, but didn't raise their hands. I don't know if you're embarrassed about it. Can I also ask how many in this room are being represented in the GAC or have been represented in the GAC? Hands up, please. There's a few. Very nice of you to sit up front. And you're welcome to contribute as well. So, without further ado, I would like to turn to Thomas and ask if you could tell us. I'm trying to operate the clicker. There was the session program. If you can tell us a little bit about the basics of the plumbing of the GAC, its context and the ecology it operates in.
Thank you, Anders, and good morning, everybody. What I'm going to show to you in the next few minutes is not very sexy, so I hope you don't fall asleep. But it's actually quite important. Some people like this very much. Others think it's not the right basics for ICANN or for government, so I try to make this understood. Yes, it works. So what is the GAC? The GAC is one of the elements in ICANN which has a very complicated multi-stakeholder structure. I go through this quite quickly. The supporting organizations, there are 3 of them, develop and recommend a policy to the ICANN board. The board of directors is the authority that decides, that approves or rejects the policy, and then we have 4 advisory committees. One of them is the Committee for Governments, the Governmental Advisory Committee. The others I will not go into detail. Currently we have 142 members. These are national governments or distinct economies, and 31 observers, multinational governmental organizations and treaty organizations. This is just a little picture for those who are not that familiar with ICANN to show you that this is quite a complicated organization. In the middle you got the board, and then you got the other sub-institutions around it. I won't again go into detail, but you see also the board is composed of elements and members from the different components. You see the GAC is this dark gray thing on the top right. It has a seat on the board, a liaison seat with no voting rights. So what is the role of the GAC? These texts come from the bylaws. Its role is to consider and provide advice on activities of ICANN as they relate to concerns of governments, particularly matters where there may be an interaction between ICANN's policies and various laws and international agreements, or where they may affect public policy issues. There's also some references to the GAC in the latest text that binds ICANN to the US Department of Commerce, the affirmation of commitment, where the DOC says that it recognizes the important role of the GAC with respect to ICANN decision-making and execution of tasks, and of the effective consideration, way of comment, advice, recommending action, new policy development, or revision to existing policies. We'll see more about some specific ways to give advice, like the communique and others, which will be presented to you by colleagues. And this is another important aspect, and by some very controversial aspect. In the event that the GAC, the ICANN board determines to take an action that is not consistent with the GAC advice, it shall inform the GAC and state its reason. That is number 1. And then the GAC and the board will try to find a mutually acceptable solution. And if no solution can be found, the ICANN board will state in its final decision the reasons why the ICANN advice was not followed. That means it can decide not to follow the ICANN, the GAC advice, then it has to state the reasons. The operating principles of the GAC define the working methods and the key elements like scope, meeting, membership rules, election rules, conduct of business and services, and also the internal revision procedures. I will not go into detail. You can find all this information on the GAC website. Just 2 things to remember. Which is important. The GAC shall provide advice and communicate issues and views to the board. It is not a decision-making body, it's an advisory body. And this last one is on consensus. GAC works, like the UN, on the basis of seeking consensus among its membership. Consensus is hereby understood to mean the practice of adopting decision by general agreement in the absence of any formal objection. Where consensus is not possible, this
audience, those of you that are not GAC representatives, do you know who your GAC representative is? Everybody knows who the GAC... Okay, it's a little bit unclear. Should I raise my hand or not? Excellent. But if you don't know who your GAC representative is, and I've met people from countries that have told me that they were hardly aware of the GAC, and they were certainly not aware of who their GAC representative was, and they weren't aware of how they could get in touch with him or her. But this is obviously available on the website. Thomas, can I just ask you to say something a little bit more, perhaps with help of Heather, if you please, about the support structure for the GAC, with how ICANN supports the GAC, and how ICANN staff and how the Secretariat supports us?
Yes, thank you. As I said, we have two persons that work for us from the ICANN side. They help us convene meetings, set up calls, find rooms. All the logistics for this is provided by ICANN, but they also help us find documents, find the right people, share information, which is a very important thing because, as you've seen and as you probably know, ICANN is quite a complicated institution that produces a lot of discussions, lots of documents, and they help us to find out what is going on, where and when, and they are very good and nice people, I have to say, in addition. And ASIC, the Australian company that is providing secretariat support, is also helping us organize meetings, organize calls. They write minutes of discussions, briefing papers, try to help us also digest the enormous amount of material, which is almost undigestible for a normal GAC member. So these are very important pillars for a GAC representative to be able to work. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to add that the support to the committee is really very critical because we have a much larger committee now than we have had in the past. There's been an enormous amount of growth in the size of the committee, and at the same time, the issues that the Governmental Advisory Committee deals with are complex, and it's really an expert-level committee. So what we're looking for is expertise from those ministries, those departments or those regulators within governments to provide public policy advice on matters arising from ICANN's technical coordination role, in particular domain names and that aspect of things. And so for that committee to be effective, the support element is really important in supporting those efforts. And as we have grown, as we have had this support for our work, it has led us to form working committees, working groups, and structures within the GAC to try and accommodate the large workload, as well as the need to work as quickly as possible, because we're not driving the work at an organization like ICANN. We have to be able to respond in the Governmental Advisory Committee. So that's I think, an important element of the support and its relationship to the success of the committee.
Excellent. Thanks, Heather. So we're all people with day jobs, so to speak. I can tell you for information that in my portfolio at the Ministry of Enterprise, besides of internet governance, I have general ICT policy issues. I'm supporting my minister when she needs to go to places and make speeches and presentations. It's not only me, obviously, there are quite a few others, but it's not only this issue, and it's not only the GAC. I do also some ITU meetings, and wherever the head of the internet governance pops up. And I would like to turn to Wanawit and Jandir and Olga. Could you please tell us your affiliation, where you're working, and what other things you may have in your portfolio? Wanawit, would you like to start?
Good morning, everybody. So the GAC work was transferred to us since establishment of the organization. We are a 3-year-old organization under Ministry of ICT. So we take care of the security. We run the Thai CERT team as well. We have a team for legal compliance, the laws, and the CCs and several issues, and the other area is on the standardization, so it's a big task. So when GAC job was appointed to us, I think the problem we have is not the amount load of works on technical sides. We have a team, but I think to communicate with the multi-stakeholder, because internet in Thailand was 25 years old, and then the organizations in the community was losing touch on the internet for some time until the new GTLD get in. So if you look into the 3 meetings a year. We have less than 10 weeks between the meetings to report the ICANN results, from communicate to the public, prepare for the next round before we come, so that the rhythm and times on coordinating with the local multi-stakeholder is really a challenge from what I see, because we need to interpret from the technical perspective on how it's affect to them, which normally it's not stated in the document. You have to study how it's affect.
Good morning to you all. I just would like to share with you a little bit of our coordination process in Brazil, domestically, how we prepare for the GAC meetings. And in Brazil, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs is responsible for coordinating the Brazilian positions to the different internet governance fora. Not only ICANN, but also ITU, the UN, and also the regional mechanisms. And I had the unit in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it's called the Information Society Division, which is responsible for this coordination. In Brazil, we have, I would say, 2 levels of coordination. The first level is within the government. It's a consultation process we have domestically with the other ministries, namely the Ministry of Science and Technology and the Ministry of Communications, to get the government positions to the GAC meetings. This is the first level of consultation. The second level is a multi-stakeholder consultation process. Perhaps some of you might know, but in Brazil, the internet governance is discussed in a multi-stakeholder model at the Brazilian Steering Committee, Internet Steering Committee. And what we do in Brazil, and this is the second level of consultation I was talking about, is that we take these positions, and to the extent possible, we get inputs from the other stakeholders and regarding the GAC positions, the positions we take to the ICANN meetings. So it's a very complex process, it's a time-consuming, but at least in our view, it adds the multi-stakeholder component that's so important for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. It's fantastic to see such a crowded room, and thanks for being with us this morning. I am Olga Cavalli. I'm advisor to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Argentina. Just a brief history of the participation of our country. We started actively participating in the GAC in 2006 after the WSIS. When the delegation came after WSIS in Tunis, we talked with our Minister of Foreign Affairs at that time, and after explaining the relevance of the internet policy development process all over the world, he thought that it was important to set up a special division in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs about following all these meetings, especially focusing ICANN, IGF, and regional processes related with these issues. So since then, I have been working in that area. And so our major role is to represent Argentina in ICANN meetings and IGF at the global level and the regional meetings in IGF. We also have a regional plan of action for information society where we have a special working group about internet governance that is led by Brazil and also by Argentina as a sub-chairing. And we coordinate some ideas at the regional level. Maybe we agree, maybe we don't, but in general we try to set up a common vision from the region and with other colleagues from other countries like Uruguay, Paraguay, Chile, Venezuela, Mexico, Peru, and maybe I'm forgetting someone. What else? We try to coordinate at a national level. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs usually informally used to organize meetings at our ministry with other areas of the government and with other stakeholders from Argentina, civil society, business sector, academia. And now we are more formalized and more organized. We have a special commission where we coordinate at a national level everything everything that is related with Internet policy, which is called CAPI, Comisión Argentina de Políticas de Internet. ¿Sí? ¿Lo dije bien? ¿Sí? And so we are more formalized, and the head of that commission is the Secretary of Communications of Argentina. And I will stop now. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And if you have any questions, you're welcome to raise your hand. Thomas said earlier that the amount of material coming out was almost indigestible. I don't know if you said almost. It's indigestible, and that's I can vouch for that. And can I ask you if one of it, Jandur and Olga, do you how many percent of your working time do you put on GAC work, and how many people, or how shall I say, how many percent of a full time would be necessary in your mind to do a really good job to contribute to the GAC?
Thank you for the question. It's difficult to answer. It depends on, sometimes the workload is much higher because it depends on the things that are going on in the GAC. For example, with new GTLDs and the GAC advice, we had a lot of work, especially those of us in the region, that we had to deal with issues related with some regional names or names that from the region that were requested as GTLDs. So that was very intense. I cannot tell you how much time, but it was intense and much more than usual time devoted to the GAC. So that may vary depending on the issues going on. But I think GTLDs has been challenging for all of us, for the whole GAC.
In our case in Brazil, it's not really a question of how much time, of the percentage of...
No domain names or international emails that will come. The transliteration, which we engage in the working groups on PDP, early engagement. So they have a weekly meeting. So we pick up the strategic area and try to focus. So for us, I think in that way we can maintain a level of 25%. So it's not that difficult.
Thomas.
Just a quick addition. I think it's not a question of whether you one or two or three persons. You need a whole network to cover the things. On national level, you need contacts to your data protection, to your human rights expert, to your trade experts. We have been discussing things like geographical indications. Cultural issues come up in the GAC with the new GTLDs. So you need to have a network that you can count on in order to do your job. And you also, which is very important, you need your colleagues from your region, but also from elsewhere, to see, make them alert to you what is relevant for them, or what is problematic for them, or what is an opportunity for them. And through that exchange, you actually learn what is going on, because you can't read everything yourself. You find out who knows more than you do, and where can you learn from, and this is how and this is what takes time, actually, the coordination, the interaction, but only like this you get a reasonable job done. Thank you.
Thanks. I hope it comes through, and it's even more true that the amount of resources that GAC representatives can put in differs quite a lot. I would say, I don't know if you would agree, it extends from having almost full instructions for each and every item.
The network that you need to do your job. I think informally we have been always doing that. From the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, consulting other areas of the government, or consulting civil society or private sector, or all together, or academia if it was necessary. I do commend the Brazilian government for having such a very interesting structure, and that has been really successful on time, and so many years. How many years? The CGI? It's like 10 over 10 years, which is remarkable in a very fast growing space, which is technology and internet. Now in Argentina we have this more formalized in our National Commission of Internet Policy, but I think that informally you always did that, and as gathering information from our network of contacts, other parts of the government, or the whole society about what we do. So I think your point was very good. Thank you.
Well, you asked me how I think our models should change. I think it could become even stronger and more participatory.
Structural or legitimacy is become a questionable, that how and who, because there may be 5 or 6 associations and we need to go through all of them, and the first question they ask is that how this is organized. Is somebody who accredit or rectify them to be a local multi-stakeholder? So we're still in that stage, but we do believe that functional is more important than structural. From what we discussed with them, that we draft out the function, what we will do, and then.
Great, thanks. We do have a remote question, and we have a question from the audience. You need a mic here?
Yes, please. It's actually a comment, and it was for the previous question, I think. This is Sarju from Andhra Pradesh, India. Rather than central government's participation, each state governments from each country representation is also key.
I think that's a really good comment. Thank you for that. We have a remote question, a local question. Please introduce yourself.
Yes, not remote, sir. Local question. I'm Ashwin from Indonesia. Because it is a GAC open forum, I just want to get perhaps not only response from our GAC members, but also from the audience. Security is becoming a big issue today. But this is what I wrote. I read this morning, you know. So, and I believe it is available somewhere in this area too. So I think the ICANN as well as the GAC and other stakeholders should think about these big issues that we had after IGF 8 until IGF 9. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashwin. Heather, if I can ambush you with a question, I know you like that. Now you're stepping down as chair after the Los Angeles meeting, so now you can be upfront. Are you happy with the GAC representatives? No, I'm not pulling your leg. It's a relevant question, because since people have different resources to prepare, it may make your job more difficult to reach consensus, perhaps, or could it even be that it makes your job easier because countries...
It's very challenging for us to resolve issues and to reach consensus. I think the consensus point is very important. It is a consensus-based committee, and so consensus processes can take time. And certainly with a larger committee, we can expect that to be a lengthier process. However, there is no less pressure on us to move quickly and be responsive to the work that gets initiated by other parts of the organization to do things. Olga mentioned the new GTLD program. It was a very large program with many kinds of really a necessity to work across the organization with other stakeholder groups and to be taking in information as well as influencing their thinking and making that bottom-up policy development process work. And that's also, it's complicated. It's complicated. And to understand what the different groups are and how they relate to the work of governments, I think does really make the point very well that there's an additional layer of complexity to an organization like ICANN and for the GAC.
Thank you very much. I think you handled that question. It was an unfair question, but a really good response, I think. But it's not only the actual ICANN meetings that we love to do 3 times a year on different exotic places around the world. There's also work to be done between meetings, and I'd like to turn to Manal If you
on a particular topic of interest or concern to GAC members, and working groups may be created also to focus efforts and facilitate GAC reaching a decision and providing advice on a certain topic. Of course, as Heather mentioned, this is quite challenging because we come from different countries. We have a topic lead who coordinates the work of each working group. Some examples of those are the capacity building working group, GAC early warning and advice on future rounds of new GTLDs, which is quite a broad topic, and also another example of the joint working groups and one which I'm involved with is the GAC GNSO consultation group, which is concerned with working on GAC early engagement in GNSO PDP. It is co-chaired between the GAC and the GNSO, of course with members from both constituencies, and approximately those compose the contact group between interfacing between the ICG and the GAC. And of course, nominations were based on principles of diversity, including regional diversity, gender, and language. And I believe we are still discussing how the GAC could participate in also the cross-community working group discussions. The GAC contact group basically represents the
Affiliation, please.
Thank you. My name is Maria Farrell, and I'm a member of the non-commercial stakeholders group in the GNSO of ICANN. And I think what we're seeing here is the best of the GAC. We've got a superb chair. We've got really, really committed, knowledgeable, if I may say, members. But if I may also say, this is not the whole of the GAC. There's a very, very large number of people who come to GAC meetings who don't necessarily home. So I wonder what the GAC members think of that in the issue of, effectiveness of some. I don't want to be unkind, but not all of the GAC members are created equal. But at the same time, within ICANN, we have a big drive to increase the power of the GAC and to effectively give the GAC almost something like a veto over policy that is developed in a very participatory, deliberative manner in the rest of the organisation. So some of us are struggling with that, and I'd like to know what the panel thinks about that. We're trying to do two things at the same time: one, increase the effectiveness, and two, increase the power of the GAC. And some of us are struggling with the fact that one is going faster than the other.
You mentioned the...
Thank you, Manal. I'm really glad you talked a bit about the accountability and transparency review recommendations that acknowledged some of the challenges in the GAC and the need for doing that kind of outreach and building capacity for our government colleagues to come and participate, and ensuring that they have that kind of support at home so that they are coming with prepared positions and they're firmly rooted in policy and legislative approaches at home, and this, of course, strengthens the ability of the GAC to address the issues that come before it. I do think it's important to remember that regardless of the current state of the GAC or how things may develop, that at the end of the day, it is a political process, one within a multi-stakeholder model like ICANN, and there's always going to be that political aspect to things. And this is very much the environment that the representatives are living in at home. It's a political environment. So I think that's also important to remember. Maria, you mentioned something about increasing...
Glad to hear that, and Alice as well. There was one more question back here. And you, sir. Name and affiliation.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Olga Madruga-Forti. I'm a member of the ICANN board. And firstly, I want to thank all of you for your generous and tireless commitment and service. service to both the board and the GAC. My question relates to your internal processes of deliberations and perhaps what you might share with us about that. And actually the most interesting response would be to hear the GAC and how do you reach it? Is there a point at which a vote needs to be taken? But when does that magical bell ring that consensus is reached? And is there a process by which a presumed consensus can be objected to or made impossible?
Participating as much as they should be in the GAC due to many issues. Being away from this platform in general puts the whole region, especially the people in the region, at a disadvantage, because actually the voice of the people in the region, even the voice of the governments in the region, may not be heard. And since some of the Arab countries have started joining, this platform has been extremely useful and supportive. You know, there are issues that interest everybody, every government, every citizen of every country. And by not being there, you won't be able to put your voice, you won't be able to voice your opinion, you won't be able to represent your people. However, by being there, you will be able to have a vote, contribute, you'll be able to exchange views with other countries, other representatives, even people in ICANN, not necessarily on the GAC, within the GAC itself. And it really gives the multi-stakeholders meeting, and usually it's a face-to-face meeting, has been held. The chair may issue a communique to the media, such communique having been pre-approved or approved by the GAC beforehand. In Singapore, we used to do that every time. The communique serves basically as a useful purpose for both GAC and ICANN. It is a clear statement on the public record on what GAC worked on, what they've agreed to at their face-to-face meeting that they have held. It is the main vehicle, but not the only vehicle. Next question is, how does the GAC identify issues for discussing at the meeting and for inclusion in the communique that we issue, or the chair issues? One is through intersessional discussions that Manal talked about, the lead up to the face-to-face meeting. Two, through a robust agenda setting process that we go through in the 4 months between the two meetings, a process that ensures members are briefed on what needs to be decided on any issue. Third is basically in discussions at the meeting that take place in the face-to-face meeting, like last time we did in London. And finally, the fourth item is in response to new issues that come up during the meeting, during the period of the week meetings that we have at the ICANN meetings. Next is, how do we draft a communique? What takes place and how does the when does the drafting of the communique take place? Clearly, throughout the week that we meet, the communique drafting or preparation takes place. It's not an effort that starts at the end of some activity. However, the GAC get together to review it as a body, one group of people. It happens usually on Wednesday of that week. The drafting is usually done by the GAC on Wednesday, as we said, in the afternoon, and this is generally the only closed session meeting that the GAC holds. So we start the meetings usually on, during the weekend. We'll have the discussions. The Secretariat does the nice job of start taking notes and preparing bits and pieces of the communique. And when it comes to Wednesday, usually we start discussing it at that time as a group. So the question was about consensus earlier. If we could up, down. something that has to really be accepted by others, by everybody almost. I'm saying almost because that's what consensus really meant by the, Principle 47. But again, it's the job of everybody within the team, especially the chair and the vice chairs, to try to make sure that the issues are understood, and sometimes what is behind the issue, and that takes a lot. What's behind the issue? Let's see how we could get the groups to agree, and we have to make sure that people understand that nobody has bad intention in these discussions. Nobody wishes to do this just to spite other governments or whatever, and that's a part of what takes place as we move forward. Where consensus is not possible, and it has happened, where it is not possible, the chair has the responsibility to make sure that she or he represents the full, the full set of views that the people have. The chair, she or he, cannot, present a view that is not consistent with the consensus. If there is no consensus, the different sets of views have to be represented in the communique and in any other communication that takes place with the board and with other constituents. There are the means. The ICANN administration or leadership has a group that deals with outreach, getting new governments in, and definitely when they come in, they do not necessarily have to be fully aware of every issue or of a specific issue. So that's where we collectively have to play a role in making sure that we get people up to speed on these issues as much as possible. But it doesn't always work. It takes time, and it depends on the preparation and the support back home. Sometimes the GAC simply uses the communique to put on notice that an emerging issue may have specific public policy implications. And that's what's communicated to the ICANN and its board and other interested parties to have time to work on the GAC, with the GAC on possible solutions. Sometimes GAC members simply agree to disagree. And as I said earlier, in this case, we're going to have to disagree, and the chairs, they should have a 2/3 vote to do that. I believe that the board has already met, did not disagree with this, and they put it for public comment in the recent. If such, basically, the GAC and the ICANN board will then try in good faith to resolve the issues or discuss it to try to come up with a solution. If no such solution can be found, the ICANN board will state in its final decision the reasons why they did not go ahead with it. The GAC advice of the
should also be considered GAC advice. Over time, you'll note that the communique, as mentioned by my colleague, has evolved in ways that in ways that it's presented. And there's also, as he's mentioned, been a certain level of tension between high-level set of principles, providing ICANN board and ICANN community with either high-level set of principles or providing very specific recommendations for implementation details, which are also quite relevant to government. So the focus is not just on high-level principles. However, having said that, the GAC has developed several principles, for example, on new GTLDs, on CCTLDs, and most often these high-level principles do help determine at the national level the policy and regulatory frameworks. At least I know that for several of our African countries, and when it comes to specifically CCTLDs. Now, one of the greatest challenges continues to be how GAC advice is interpreted, and not just by the ICANN board, but the ICANN community generally. How it's interpreted in order to identify actions in response to the advice provided. And a good example, which I'd said I was going to provide, was the frustrations we felt, especially with when we were developing the new GTLDs, the frustrations most governments felt with the fact that most of our communication and the advice we were providing was actually not being either understood or taken into account. And that's the reason why we came up with a new process, with a new stakeholder format, requires new types of negotiations and interactions. So sometimes where consensus is not possible, our chair, conveys the full range of views by the members to the board. And to be honest, I'm not sure, even my own country, Kenya, has tried to develop a multi-stakeholder model which is currently enshrined in our constitution that forces any policy processes to undergo a multi-stakeholder model. But I actually don't think it's currently working in the way we would like to work. So I'm not sure we have really established a definitive method for developing multi-stakeholder policies or regulatory frameworks using the multi-stakeholder approach. So for me, the GAC communiques and scorecard is one way of interaction, which is very, very important, and especially for the multi-stakeholder model. And the GAC work is actually not easy, and sometimes I actually feel quite a lot of empathy for our chair, especially during very difficult negotiations to help us create that advice. So as you can see, the process of creating advice and the communique has evolved, and we continue creating and inventing mechanisms, especially taking into consideration that the organization, ICANN itself, is at the core of the most sensitive expression in the WSIS, which acknowledge the respective roles of the various stakeholders. So ICANN is currently, I believe, the only entity at the global level that is actually making policies and decisions and implementing them in a slightly different manner, in that trying very hard to make that multi-stakeholder model work. So making resolutions, declarations, and recommendations is quite different from developing agreements. So that's why ICANN is quite special in that way, and even more challenging, because we have to make those recommendations and implement policies using that model. And this is why the current ICANN accountability process is extremely important, and the role of the GAC is even more important, so in how it engages and participates, and in fact not just important, quite critical. I'll stop there, wait for questions.
Thank you very much, Alice. And I'm going to change to the last slide. And we do have a remote question here.
From Gideon.Connect Africa. I have a question on the GAC members' understanding on the ICANN and internet governance policies and process when they come to ICANN meetings. How do they determine the delegates' understanding of these when they make decisions?
Wow, that's not an easy question. Does anybody in the panel have the understanding of this when they make decisions? Could you repeat the question, perhaps?
How do they determine the delegates' understanding of these when they make decisions?
Determine the delegated understanding. How do they determine the delegated understanding of this when they make decisions? Maybe I can read it. Oh my God. That's a really small print. I have a question to the GAC members. I have a question on the GAC members' understanding on the ICANN and the internet governance policies and processes when they come to ICANN meetings. From Gideon. How do we understand the questions when we come to the meetings? Well, some do. How do we understand the questions when we come to the ICANN meetings? I understand the question as how well are we understanding and following the agenda for the meeting and the technical issues of the things that are on the agenda. I think we discussed that a little bit earlier, actually. So considering that we don't have much time now, there's a question in the back I would like to take as well. Oh. Name and affiliation, please.
Hello, everybody. TT, private sector. I think the last question has more to do with how do you, as the GAC, determine the validity of representation? So how do you determine the validity of the person who is sitting on the GAC representing a country, such that one, you have an you are able to determine they have an understanding of the issues to be able to make those decisions. So it's more around that process, I think.
Heather, please.
Thank you for the question. So it's pretty straightforward in that a GAC member will appoint a representative, and then that representative speaks on behalf of that country, and that's not questioned, and that's how we operate. Thank you.
Thomas?
I'm participating in the GAC for 6 years, and I have observed that in the beginning was mostly technical expert in the early days of ICANN, and especially with the new GTLD program, where more economic and political and social and rights issues have come in, that the representation of governments has also changed, that you have more people who maybe have less technical specific skills somewhere, but are able to consult, as we said before, with other ministries, with the industry, with civil society and academics. So it's shifting from, at least that's my perception, from a more technical expert to a more diplomatic, networking, collecting information and digesting it and forming a position type of representative. And many GAC members have now also two. One expert on a key issue and the other one who basically takes the whole thing together. Thank you.
Iman?
Let me try to address it. First of all, as was mentioned, it is the responsibility of the government to make sure that the person who comes to the meeting has credentials. It is their responsibility to make sure that they are well prepared and ready, and they have the background for the day, for the issues that are going to be discussed, because that agenda is made available ahead of time, and we talked a little bit about the process, how we come up with the agenda. Third, I believe it is the responsibility of the people who have an issue to communicate with the different governments and their representative to get their views as to what their views are on the different issues. And then when they come to the meeting, it is an open forum and everybody has to take responsibility for what they do. Thanks.
All right, we're drawing to a close. I would also like to point to the GAC website, which you can find through the ICANN website, and we do have some nice presentation papers there that you can print. I have a kit of them, about 25, that I can hand out here if anybody is interested. It may give some answers to questions that maybe was never asked, but you were thinking about. And so let's finish here. I would like to say thank you to, I'm sorry? Who has a question? Do you have a question?
Sorry. Yeah, sorry for this. I did have a question. Sorry, my name is David Cake. I'm part of civil society, but Electronic Frontiers, but perhaps more pertinently also part of the vice chair of the GNSO within ICANN and part of the GAC GNSO Cooperation Committee. My question is really, and I apologize, it's probably not a simple one, that a lot of the clashes we see within ICANN between, particularly between the GAC and the GNSO and other things, often come down to the fact, yes, people disagree, but one of the complicating factors is the GAC does not actually deliver policy. It delivers policy advice. So perhaps often a paragraph about something, and this will then sort of be compared to a policy, which is, there would seem to be a clash the two. A policy being, might be a 20-page document prepared over a year. This clash between policy advice and policy, obviously part of that is getting the GAC to engage earlier, but it's not a foolproof solution. How do we deal with that situation better where the GAC can often be we're often comparing policy advice to policy, and the GAC is not actually able to, in itself, do policy. Yeah.
Thank you for this comment. One of you can have a short reply to it.
It will be brief. So I think you've pointed to what is really at the heart of the challenge in a model like this, and there's no quick and easy solution. The work happening between the GNSO, the Generic Name Supporting Organization, and the Governmental Advisory Committee is one attempt that you are aware of to better address that, but there's no quick solution. And there are a number of things working on the GAC, as we've talked about, that can also limit the ability of the GAC to comment maybe earlier on, or to simply focus on the policy without those political considerations, and all these things make it challenging. But I think it's important to look at that issue. And yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for the panel, and I wish you all have a nice lunch.